How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys, Alex and Ryan. We are very excited to talk about a left-handed hitter climbing the Yankees farm system, a guy that we were really excited about during spring training, but he obviously, I think he had a broken rib or something like that, was knocked out for the first couple of weeks of the year. But this is a player that we're really excited about because of his potential as not just a catcher, but also as a potential outfield solution in the future. And that lefty Batman, tons of power, a lot of potential there. And if you haven't figured it out yet, we're talking about Austin Wells. And Austin Wells is one of the Yankees' top prospects climbing the farm. His defensive stats at the catcher position have kind of steadily increased over the past couple of years. He reduced his pass balls and his framing rate. He's kind of like improved in every category, to be quite honest. But I still think the Yankees may end up moving him to another position. You know, could be first, could be in the corner outfield spot. He's got pretty solid athleticism. He's actually pretty solid on the bases too. We're going to talk about how well he's been performing lately, and Ryan, like kind of why you believe he should be fast tracked to the MLB. You know, the Yankees have a big need in left field right now. I know he's in Double-A. Maybe we don't see him this year, but maybe next year he becomes more of a prominent solution. We want to discuss him as a potential long-term guy for this team and what his value really is. You know, just a lot of potential here, and there's a lot to be excited about. But Ryan, before we dive into Austin Wells and what he is doing lately, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. You know, as you mentioned, you know, the Yankees are kind of in a situation right now where it feels like they're starting to bridge between, you know, the previous core, the baby bomber era, if you'd like to call it, and this new group of players. I don't know what we're going to call these guys, but, you know, it is a new, different group of players, new faces. You know, obviously a lot of excitement in Double-A around guys like Jason Dominguez. Trey Sweeney has been pretty good as well. But, you know, Austin Wells, as you mentioned, due to that injury, kind of got lost in the kind of the hype mold, right? Typically, you see a lot of guys get a lot of hype in spring training. You get to see them play, you get to see them do things every day, you get to see them in action on TV. Even in a spring training game where it doesn't count, you know, it's still exciting to see. And Austin Wells didn't get that chance this year, but in Double-A so far, he's gone off to a red hot start. You know, I'm currently in Binghamton, and so, you know, I've been checking on the Binghamton Rubber Ponies and all that stuff. Austin Wells last week hit 3 home runs against them. He torched them, right? And anyone on that team, anyone in Binghamton will tell you he was killing them that series. And he's gone off to a great start in Double-A this year with a 193 WRC plus. And if you look at his career in Double-A, we're almost at 300 play appearances. We're at 277 to be exact. He's hitting 261 with a 357 OBP, 512 slugging percentage, and an 870 OPS. That's really impressive. You know, he's 16 home runs, 52 RBIs, 8 stolen bases without getting caught. You know, this is a really just very well-rounded hitter. He's left-handed, as you mentioned, which I think is really important because the Yankees don't have a lot of left-handed options in their lineup, but they don't have plenty of left-handed options in their system that I think are currently readily available for them. Austin Wells, I think, should be in Triple-A as we speak. I think we're already past the point where we should be talking about whether he should be in Triple-A or not, and I think the Yankees should start fast-tracking him. You know, his bat is really good. Is the defense there yet? I don't know. I don't know if he'll stick at catcher long-term. He's very adamant about sticking at catcher long-term, which I think speaks well to his mentality and who he is as a person and his makeup. But, you know, if the Yankees want to get him in left field or right field, you know, he's played that in college. He's actually even played some center field in the Cape Cod League. He has experience at first base, so you can move him around the infield and outfield. And I think it's just good to get him around guys like Jose Trevino and Kyle Higashioka. You know, these are two elite defensive catchers. Jose Trevino being the best defensive catcher in baseball since coming over to the Yankees. You know, I think that's a very valuable lesson. And there's a lot of valuable experiences he could get from working with those guys, seeing how they establish relationships with pitchers, seeing how they work with pitchers, what they go through in terms of their, you know, pre-game preparation. What do they study in terms of when they go to pitch call for different batters in different games? You know, understanding the process of how they go through their defensive reps game to game, and, you know, even on off days, I think is really important. And getting some sort of rapport with the MLB pitchers is important as well, because if the Yankees are committed to Austin Wells being a catcher, he's got to be comfortable behind the dish, and Garrett Cole's got to be comfortable throwing to him, right? You know, Garrett Cole's a very particular guy. We know that, right? He wants his catcher behind the dish, and right now it's Jose Trevino. In the past was Kyle Higashioka. You know, if you remember when Gary Sanchez was still with the team, you know, even when he was hitting at times in 2021, he would sit for Kyle Higashioka for Garrett Cole, right? So if you're Austin Wells, you want to be the catcher of this team long-term, you've got to start developing that relationship with the ace of the New York Yankees, developing that relationship with other stars in the Yankees. You know, fortunately, he's working with some of the Yankees' top pitching prospects, so there is a rapport down the road that we can look at. But I think it's important for him to start getting that major league work, or working with, you know, major league coaches and some of the best defensive catchers in baseball. It could be a very valuable experience to him, and of course, obviously, it could help the Yankees line up a lot with his bat.
Absolutely. I mean, the reality is I think he'd probably be in AAA right now if it wasn't for that injury. You know what I mean? Like, talk about fast tracking. If he was in AAA right now, if he didn't have that broken rib or whatever it might be, we might be talking about him as a potential call-up option right now. But because of that injury, he was been forced to kind of reclimb the system. He started this year in A with Tampa. Obviously skips over A+ with Hudson Valley and goes right to AA Somerset. He has 4 homers in his first 7 games with them, right? Like, he's just started here, hitting 259, 333 OBP. You imagine these numbers are going to get better. 778 slugging percentage, 193 WRC plus. Like, Austin Wells is cranking right now in AA. I would not be surprised if they had him there for maybe 3 more games before they promote him to AAA. I mean, he's ready to take the jump. I believe Carlos Narvaez also got promoted to AA, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, or did he get promoted to AAA? Do you know?
He started out with AA, got promoted to AAA.
Okay, so Carlos Narvaez, who looked pretty solid at times, had a couple homers in spring training, good defensive catcher as well, definitely climbing the system. But Austin Wells, way more of an offensive threat. Do you project him as a future outfield? Do you think, like, if you had to say right now, where you think he's going to end up being? Because like you said, some more of our pitchers, you look at Rodon, if he ever, pitches for us, and Garrett Cole, they need good defensive catchers. They need Jose Trevino's there. But even if Austin Wells, I'll throw this out there as a potential kind of idea. Austin Wells can be your reserve catcher. Like, he can fill Kyle Higashioka's role, but is there an argument to make that maybe when he's not filling that backup catcher role, he's playing in the outfield? Do you think they could use that kind of dual threat like that? It's kind of unique, right?
Yeah, actually, the Royals tried this with MJ Melendez. He was, of course, a much worse defensive catcher than Austin Wells was. So this year they axed that. They just made him an outfielder full time. But, I think it gives the Yankees enough of an MLB sample size to get him to work with an MLB pitching staff. We get to understand where his strengths are and where his weaknesses lie. And that can also help him in the offseason to see what he has to work on and continue to develop those skills. But, the outfield thing, it's not because I think Austin Wells will go out and be a Gold Glove outfielder. It's just because I want him to be in the lineup, right? And I think you can agree with me here. You want to call up a guy so that he can get major league reps offensively. You don't want to call them up to be a part-time player. I've been very vocal about my, displeasure with how they've used Oswald Peraza, using him as a part-time player. I don't think that's how you handle top prospects. And Austin Wells is someone who, can really give the Yankees the spark they're looking for offensively down the road. Obviously, I'm not saying today, I'm not saying tomorrow or next week, looking more later in the season, kind of like when Oswaldo Cabrera came up back in August of last year. I think one big thing I want to emphasize is that I'd rather this team lose in the postseason with their young guys than lose in the postseason with the veterans that have been struggling on this team, right? I'm going to have a much different feeling about the end of this season if it's Austin Wells or Jason Dominguez or Andre Chaparro or Anthony Volpe or Oswald Peraza taking that final at bat if they lost in the postseason than I would if it was Aaron Hicks or IKF or Josh Donaldson, right? I don't need to know what 33-year-old Aaron Hicks is going to do later in his career. I know he's a bad player right now, and he's 33, right? Typically, injuries and aging don't do you very well as you start to regress. I don't need to know what I have with Josh Donaldson, right? I've got an extended sample size of him regressing and not being the player he used to be. He is also a walking injury threat. The way I look at it is I want these kids to be the guys that I'm relying upon at some point during the year, or not necessarily relying upon, but utilizing it and allowing to thrive, right? It also creates higher variance in your players, right? Yes, there is that aspect of they could all be duds and you could run out a pretty bad team because they're all duds. But the ceiling there is they can all be really good players, and suddenly you have a abundance of cheap young talent. Some of those guys maybe become surplus pieces. You can move them in deals. You can get high level players back, or they become parts of your future. One thing I really liked about the Yankees a few years back, back in 2017, what made that, in my opinion, not a painful postseason loss was that they lost with their young guys out there, right? And coming into 2018, and Duhar and Glaber got included into the fold, right? That's when this team was a really young team. That's when this team had a really bright future, right? This team still has a bright future, in my opinion, but, I want this team to rely upon their young players. Austin Wells should not be in AA for much longer, right? There's no reason to, right? There really isn't a reason, right? He's too good. He's murdering AA, right? Honestly, it's kind of unfair to other guys in AA, right? If I'm a pitcher and I have to face Austin Wells, the guy shouldn't be there. But I think you can agree with me here. If I'm going to lose, and, I'm not saying I have a defeatist attitude that this team can't win the World Series, but, there's a 90% chance the best teams in baseball don't win the World Series. So if I lose in the postseason, I want it to be because I went out with my young guys, right? And they went out and they fought, and they just fell short. It happens, right? But we need to start getting these guys involved because they're our future. And a year and 2 years from now, these guys are going to be the guys you rely upon to go out and win a World Series. Severino's a free agent at the end of the year. Gleyber's a free agent after 2 years. That BB Bomber core is gone. Gary's gone. Some of the surplus pieces, Urshela, Voit, they're gone. Some of your other position players, the Didis, the Starling Cashes of the world, they're gone, right? These guys are no longer part of the organization. Greg Bird, Tyler Austin, they're not part of the organization. Clint Frazier, Miguel Andujar, now is part of a new core, and you have to start getting that new wave incorporated. I don't need to see Aaron Hicks. I don't need to see IKF. I don't need to see Josh Donaldson. I need to see these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, this is the future of the team, and we have a lot of good prospects climbing the system, right? You got Trey Sweeney, you got Austin Wells, Jason Dominguez, some really talented individuals. There's so many I'm not even naming, like Elijah Dunham, even Everson Pereira. We'll see what happens with him. Will Warren, there's a lot of really good players the Yankees have climbing this system, and they're getting really close to being potential starters at the next level, or at least potential impact players. However, I am curious to see how Cashman has them rated, because if we have to fill the left field position, if we have to go make some upgrades, if we need to go acquire a starting pitcher, you better believe some of these guys are going to be on the table as potential trade pieces. You know what I mean? So leveraging good momentum is something that Cashman tends to do. We move guys that are like making good steps forward. Obviously like Ken Waldichuk, Wesneski were like really killing it last year in AAA, and he leveraged those right into players who aren't playing for us. So it's kind of unfortunate. If we're going to make deals, at least make the most of them and not get injury prone players. Like that would make sense, or guys that are already hurting. Frankie Montas, for example. If we're going to trade some of these high end prospects, let's do it the right way and get reliable talent. I think that would be ideal. And maybe reliable talent that's not going to be done after a year, has a little bit more service time. And Scott Efros, that was a freak injury. I'll give him that. That was not something that we expected, and he doesn't have any service time accumulated for the most part. So he's basically locked in for 5 more seasons on cost control. So I'm pretty excited about that. But, right now, Austin Wells, certainly an exciting prospect with tons of upside. Really, really like his lefty bat. Fits the profile of Yankee Stadium to perfection. We'll just see where his defensive identity goes. This could be a position where he ends up in the outfield, or ends up, an infield position like first base, or maybe he ends up as a catcher if his defense continues to improve. So we'll see how it progresses. We'll keep you guys in the loop as always. We got a big 4-game series starting today against the Tampa Bay Rays in the Bronx. Let's win some games. Oakland was our sacrificial lamb. They gave us a great opportunity to get right. They let our offense put 28 runs on them in 3 games, and that is exactly what we needed to happen to get us back on track. So hopefully Tampa shows up today and the Yankees are ready to go, because a series win over Tampa right now would hit just right, and I think it would give us a big head start in regaining the losses we have sustained in the AL East. And I think, I don't know how many games back there are, maybe 9 or 8, but this would be an opportunity to take some serious ground and take it back from the Rays, who have been one of the best in baseball up to this point in the year. But as always, my friends, make sure to like and subscribe to the Fireside Yankees channel. As always, leave a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify if you enjoyed the episode. We appreciate that very much. And we'll catch you guys on the next one.